Now, hello everybody. What's up? It's
Hello.
Bill and Pete. How are you, Pete?
Okay, busy.
All right. Yes. A little busy myself. We're being very good little boys again and starting on time. Although I was worried about Pete because I was like, where was he all day? You were gone pretty much all day.
Yeah, pretty much working nonstop from 5 on.
Okay, so guys, we've reached the end of season one. I can't believe it. It went by quick. And Um, we enjoyed it. Tonight we're going to talk episodes 19 through 24, which are the last six episodes. And at the end, we're going to talk season overview, what we thought of the season as a whole, and then give you our top eight episodes, which is a weird number, but I just figured we'd get two episodes from each podcast we did. And, although I will admit last week was kind of weak, so I only picked one episode from last week, and I got to my eight picking an episode from what we're going to talk about this week because this is a strong end to a season. We got some really good episodes coming up. At least
Yeah,
I felt so.
yeah, it's all
Pretty
good stuff.
pretty strong season ending. So guys, before we get all the way into it, look, we're competing with David Duchovny tonight, Pete. Today is February 4th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because he just released a book, Truly Like Lightning, and it's gotten some pretty decent reviews of this book by David Duchovny. And I read an interview where he really wants to be respected as a as an author. He's written a whole bunch of books. It's actually his fourth novel. It's a according to Amazon.com. It's a heartbreaking it's a New York Times bestselling author David Duchovny, an epic adventure that asks how we make sense of right and wrong in a world of extremes. For the past 20 years, Bronson Powers, former Hollywood stuntman and converted Mormon, has been homesteading deep in the uninhabited desert outside Joshua Tree with his three wives and 10 children. Bronson and his wives, Yalula, Mary, and Jackie, have been raising their family away from the corruption and evil of the modern world. Their insular experience, controversial, difficult, but Edenic, is upended when the ambitious young developer Maya Abadesa stumbles upon their land, hoping to make a profit, blah, 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 blah. This sounds crazy. Truly Like Lightning, David Duchovny's fourth novel, is a heartbreaking meditation on family, religion, sex, greed, human nature, in the vanishing environment of an ancient desert. But it's gotten all like 5 stars here on Amazon. So, so people seem to like it. And it's kind of funny that this book came out this week because I just watched an episode yesterday written by David Duchovny. This was one of his.
Yeah, I saw that one as well.
So he has written some episodes for the XFiles. So go pick up some David Duchovny if that's your thing, and maybe you'll dig it. But let's get to what you're all here for, some XFiles talk. And we begin with episode 19 called Shapes. I'm going to let Pete take this one first. But before we get there, let's do our usual. It was originally aired on April 1st, 1994. 18th episode, 11.5 million viewers. So the viewership went up. I think after those kind of bad episodes in the middle, people were like, oh, we should watch it again. And it was written by Marilyn Osborne and directed by David Nutter. So the shooting of a Native American draws Mulder and Scully into a mystery involving lycanthropy or lycanthropy, and the
Yeah.
phenomenon that opened the X Files, werewolf syndrome. Oh, and Pete, later I got that article that I wanted to show you last week that I think you'll have a nice laugh at. But what do you think of this episode, Pete?
I thought it was
Shape.
solid. Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. Basically, it's a werewolf story with a little bit of Native Indian mythology thrown in there. Um, Basically, they are investigating the shooting of an Indian on this white rancher's property that appears to be over a land dispute. But the white folks claim that they fired on like some kind of giant animal, and there is evidence to support this. And their investigation kind of leads them deep into this Native Indian myth that also happens to tie into something that J. Edgar Hoover investigated himself as one of the original X Files. And it has to do with a creature called the Manitou, I believe it's called, that
Mhm.
can take the form of an animal. So they actually, I don't think they actually ever call it a werewolf, but I mean, look at the images. It's a freaking werewolf. It doesn't have all the werewolf mythology with like the full moon and stuff like that, but it has a lot of the werewolf mythology. And yeah, it's a solid episode. It's not outstanding, but it's fun. It's a kind of a different type of werewolf story.
Funny thing, because I was looking at my notes and I wrote exactly the same thing you just said. Solid episode. And also, it's one of the first to genuinely scare me as a kid. I remember watching this first run, and I thought that for the budget that they had and the TV stuff, this was a pretty good transformation scene for this werewolf. And they played a lot with shadows, and what you don't see is
Yeah.
scarier than what you do see. But for being like a first season TV show that was still just getting its shit straight, let's say, I thought it was pretty well done, and I got really scared. I have a thing for werewolves. I a couple years ago I went on a werewolf movie binge, and I've seen so many werewolf movies, and they're hard to do, because you have to marry the human story with the werewolf story to make it interesting, like the struggle that this human is going through. And I thought they did a really good job. Hello, viewer. We got a viewer. Thanks for those that have been commenting in the Facebook group. And I apologize. Last week, I completely forgot to put the timestamps, and then I just got busy and I didn't do it. So I'll make sure to put the timestamps because that makes it easier for you to know what episode we're talking about when we have such a long video. And I think tonight's podcast is going to be a little long. But yes, it deals a lot with the Skinwalker myth. I don't know. Do you know anything about the Skinwalker myth, Pete? In Skinwalker
Um,
Ranch?
Nope, didn't know anything about it really. Apparently, it's native to Iroquois and Algonquin groups.
Yes, and there's this place called Skinwalker Ranch. And oh my goodness, Pete, I may have to ask you to fill in some time because my dog is just a scaredy cat, and I think it's gonna rain, and I gotta tie him up. But before I do that, just Skinwalker Ranch is a really bad movie. Don't watch it. But I put Skywalker Ranch by mistake, and I got stuff on George Lucas. Okay, let's change that. It's known as Sherman Rank. Is a property located approximately 500. It has on approximately 512 acres southwest of Ballard, Utah. That is reputed to be the site of paranormal and UFO related activities. It's a name taken from the Skinwalker of Navajo legend concerning vengeful shamans. So I like that they put in the Native American spin. Like you said, it's a werewolf story, but it's werewolf story coming from a bit more of a reality, let's say, of Native American mythology, which I thought was really cool. It allowed for a lot of different aspects of their religion and faith to come through. But definitely a really, really good episode. Loved it. I gave it 3.5 stars. But we'll talk a little bit later about maybe some folks that didn't like this. I got a really funny article I'm going to share with you guys from Variety.
Yeah,
But
if
it sounds
if
like it
there's a,
was written. It was either Variety or The Vulture or something. But
yeah, If there's
No,
any real
vulture.com.
if there's any
Uh,
real criticism that I could make about this, it's only
can you
that yeah.
can you fill in some airtime real quick? I just got to tie my dog up because he's gonna be banging on my door. Wait up.
Okay. Yeah. So overall, as Phil said, really nice the way it ties into the Native Indian mythology. I also like that they didn't play too heavily on the hostility between the white people and the native people, because obviously there is some tension there because of land disputes, but it was handled as a land dispute, not as like the whole, cultural rape of the Aboriginals by the white man. It was the tension derives specifically just from this land dispute. They didn't get on a soapbox about that. So I kind of like that aspect of it. I mean, there are forums to take that approach, but they didn't really see the need to use this as one of them. The only thing that kind of made me roll my eyes was that Scully all but sees the werewolf transform into a werewolf, and she's still pretty much in denial at the end of it. They kind of played her skeptic bit a bit too much. Basically, our werewolf boy, Lyle, I think he's like locked in the bathroom or something. And then a wolf
Yes.
comes out of the bathroom and they shoot it. And then they see Lyle's body, and she's still like, I'm pretty sure it was a mountain lion. It was the mountain
Yes.
lion. But the mountain lion was in the cage. So at the end, she still kind of refuses to accept that Lyle was a werewolf.
Yeah, they play that too much. And also Scully again is unwittingly with the killer. This was something
Yeah.
that happened quite a few times this season where she ends up being in the same room with the person that's gonna try to kill her or do something bad to her, which I don't think is a very cool trope that they reused a lot in season one. But I agree with you. Um, well, for those of you out there who enjoy Twin Peaks and love to make the connections between the two shows, which I do because one is directly like the spawn of the other, Hawk and Sheriff Charles Scanny is played by the same actor. And I totally forgot this when I watched it this time. I was like, oh shit, but maybe it's because I hadn't seen Twin Peaks the first time I saw this, or the second time that I saw this. And Hawk is such a cool character in Twin Peaks. It's played by Mr. Michael Horse. So we have that little Twin Peaks connection. And as long as we're doing Twin Peaks connections, we can't forget David Duchovny plays Denise in Twin Peaks. And I was very, very pleased that he came back for the revival as an adult and more mature Denise, FBI agent, who is gender fluid, or however you want to call it. But yeah, so we got Mulder pre X Files, and then maybe Mulder got a little sex change to get into the FBI for the X Files, and then after the X Files was done, he went back to being Denise. So a little bit of Twin Peaks fun right there. And now, this is one of my favorite episodes. I think I'm gonna rank it top of my list when we do the ranking at the end. When it comes to X Files episodes, and it's called Darkness Falls. This is another one that I clearly remember watching first run, and I can watch it a million times and not get bored with it. Came out April 15th, 12.5 million viewers. Written by Chris Carter
Yep.
and directed by Joe Napolitano. And the agents become trapped in a forest where 30 loggers are strangely disappeared with the same fate eerily approaching them. Now, I'll tell you, this episode for me is like a sister to Ice. I always kind of
Yeah.
connect two episodes. They have a very similar feel to them as far as, there's a bunch of people out in the middle of nowhere. Something weird happens to them. We don't know what it is. They were all happy go lucky and then they weren't. So Mulder and Scully go out there to investigate, and they end up being stuck in the middle of something biological that has crept up from the undergrounds of the earth. In this case, it's from cutting trees. They've cut down a very old tree that they shouldn't have. So there's a little bit of an eco message there. Don't cut down old trees. And these, what are they, Pete? Little parasites
They're
or what?
they're insects. They're like prehistoric insects.
Yes, they're these prehistoric insects that come out at night like little glow bugs, and they put you in a cocoon and you get dead. So that's the basic storyline, but what works for me is just the human drama of this episode. It's really, really, really cool. What do you think of that?
I loved it. I mean, first of all, it's a very BC episode. I mean, you don't get much more BC than Lumberjacks, and it was in fact filmed in the BC rainforest. And yeah, it's like you said, it draws certain parallels to ice in that they're isolated in a situation where something obviously terrible has happened, and it's going to befall them too. And the whole scenario is that like they're stuck in this cabin, and they're, of course, none of their vehicles work, and they can't possibly get out of where they are before dark. But dark is when these bugs come out, and they have no chance against the bugs. Like if you're out in the dark, 100% chance the bugs are going to get you. So very, very tense that way. The bugs were really scary. It did have this kind of environmental subtext to it, which is a big thing in the Pacific Northwest, because logging is like the bread and butter of the area, but there's also concerns about preserving old growth forests as well. So this definitely tapped into that. But ultimately, it's all about the bugs. The bugs were really menacing.
They were, and I think what works with this episode is that it uses the old Hitchcock formula for suspense. It lets you know in the beginning this is what's going to happen, and you have that time clock, that little, that ticker going off. Nighttime is coming, so the suspense is from minute one till the end because of that, and it just works so beautifully. So I don't know. I just love it. I love the color scheme of it. The greens. The greens kind of remind me a little bit of just the X Files theme in general because the logo and everything
Yes.
has the greens. So this feels like the quintessential X Files episode, and it's out in the open, which I think, I mean, even though they're isolated, but there's still all that openness of it, which I think makes me like it a little bit more than ice. Although ice is great too, but ice is kind of intense. You have to kind of uh, strap yourself down for ice. Whereas this one
Yeah.
is just, go ahead.
No, apparently though, the this was one of the more difficult episodes of the first season to shoot because they were plagued by weather problems. Like BC gets like a meter and a half of rain a year, so it rains a lot. And here, like they're out in a completely open setting for most of it. And apparently, the director, Joe Napolitano or something like that,
Yeah,
he
Napolitano.
yeah, he kind of lost his shit, and he never directed another episode. Apparently, he caused a lot of problems, losing his shit over the weather.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he stuck around for a while on the show. Boy,
No, I don't think so.
okay. He said, "I'm done with this shit." Well, filming outdoors is the probably one of the hardest things to do. If anybody wants to watch a good documentary, watch. I think it's on YouTube about the making of Jaws, the original, and it was just hell because they just had to film out in the water, and the sunlight's not always the same, the lines aren't always the same, and imagine the boats going up and down. It's amazing that they were able to make that movie at all. But anything dealing with outside, it looks beautiful, but I can imagine it's a pain in the ass. It's a real pain in the ass to do. So definitely give this one high marks. Also, a great episode to give us more Mulder and Scully together. Their relationship, how much they care for each other, and they want to protect one another. And it's also great because they do lose. There's no winning
They,
against the Bucks. They
yeah,
die.
yeah.
quickly at the end. You know, they don't escape.
Yeah, no, the bugs definitely come out on top, which is actually another nice message about nature. You know, you can't beat Mother Nature.
Yes, you know, they do have this kind of cleanup scene at the end, saying that they're gonna fumigate the area or something, or they're gonna quarantine the area. But you know, we don't know. We don't know. Just close out
Yeah,
that area of the forest, because my thought was, you know, how are these bugs gonna stay just in this area? But they did have to add that little scene in there to make us believe that everything's gonna be okay in the end. And this gif right here is the end of the episode. We're like, okay, we ain't making it. And now we got episode 21. Tombs is back.
yes,
He was so popular the first time around. Where is my X Files wiki page? The X Files fandom. This was released on April 22nd, so they're rolling out some good episodes. 13 million viewers, so viewership is growing here at the end of the season. Written by Morgan and Wong, the dynamic duo. Directed by David Nutter, one of the best directors in the X Files canon. Eugene Victor Toombs, the limb stretching serial killer who Mulder previously captured, is released from prison and set free against Mulder's advice. Well, go ahead.
yes, and he is actually the first X Files villain to return, and a good one to come back because basically the situation under which he gets released isn't that implausible, and I think my favorite parts of this were the beginning and the end. The middle was kind of but the beginning is great because basically what Toombs is being held for isn't any of the murders. He's being held because he attacked Scully in the previous episode that he appeared in. So that's all he's in for, and he's been held under psychiatric evaluation. And they have a hearing to determine his competency. And Mulder speaks up in court as to why he shouldn't be released, which is that he's a 100-plus-year-old man who eats livers and can elongate his body, which doesn't go over in court. He sounds insane. So, of course, Toombs gets released and picks
Oh, we lost you, Pete. It's funny that you say that about how it's not implausible that he got released, because for me,
all those.
oh, go
Yeah,
ahead. I was like, how the fuck are they gonna release this guy? Because he didn't, you know, didn't come off as the
and
most
trying to do it.
stable guy. But go ahead. Your audio cut out a little bit.
Stalking him.
Pete, we're losing your audio. So I'm gonna just say, just out of this first part here with Tombs, I don't know. I mean, what you said made sense logically, but just watching the scenes unfold and how, okay, we lost Pete for a second. His internet must have dropped out. But just watching how it goes down, for me, it didn't feel very implausible. Although Mulder didn't do himself any favors by going into the court and giving his wild theory about who Toombs was. Although he could have shown more evidence. I mean, they had fingerprints and they had pictures of this guy from way back in the day. So he could have done a better job at that. And Scully is there. I think she could have given a better job at that too. But I don't know. He just doesn't come off as the most stable guy to let out of prison. But, you know, it is what it is. But go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, no, I just felt that, yeah, the beginning was pretty good. The middle is basically Mulder stalking him, trying to keep him from getting that one last liver. Not a lot of scares really in this one compared to the first Tombs episode. The first one had a lot of scares. This one, you know, Mulder's on top of shit. You know, probably nothing bad's gonna happen in this. So it kind of diluted the suspense and the horror factor a little bit, but it did have a slam bang conclusion. The ending was good. That was a messy way to go. You know, there's not going to be a Tombs 3.
I know that I love the ending. I I like this episode a little bit more than the first episode for those reasons that you mentioned. It's not about just scaring you, like it tries to really get into the minds of this guy and what he's planning to do. And in that way, he comes off as a little bit more sinister because he's very, very desperate to get that last liver. And it has a lot of suspenseful scenes. Like I love the him trying to go up the toilet, but then the toilet's
Yeah,
not working, and so there's a little bit of humor in there. So he goes in through the window, you know. So I think that was
yeah,
a bit of humor that they put in there. Um, Also, um, I love this scene in the car. That's why I put that here on the screen, where
yeah,
Scully and Mulder are just talking, and he's like, and I even made my parents call me Mulder,
yeah,
and then Scully says, Mulder, I wouldn't put myself on a line for anybody but you. And then he says, if there's iced tea in that bag, it could be love, but there's only root beer. But this scene
yeah.
is so great. It just shows the chemistry between the two actors and the love of the two characters. And there's a shout out to Howard Stern because he says that while he's on the stakeout, he's been listening to 4 hours of Baba Booey. So I like that, of course. I also like that the psychiatrist was killed by tombs. It reminded me of The Dark Knight, you know, when the psychiatrist lets the Joker out and
Yeah.
all trying to play it like, oh, he's totally cured, he's this, he's that, and everything, and then he's the first to go. So I thought that was maybe a nod to that comic book. I don't know. And I just dug it. I dug it because of these little touches. It just kind of gave us the psychology of Tombs more than just another monster of the week. And Pete's right, like not a lot happens. There's a lot of suspense, there's a lot of might happen type stuff, but in the end nothing really does until they find his lair and they have that messy ending in the escalator,
Although
which
there is something really significant about this episode, and that is the first appearance of Walter Skinner.
yes, I put that down. It's his first scene, and we got the cigarette man with him, so it's also his first scene
Yes.
with the cigarette man. So, in that, speaking of which, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that bothers me so much about the cigarette smoking man. Like, what the fuck does he do in Skinner's office all day other than just smoke cigarettes? Like, he just
Yeah.
sits there and watches Skinner like write reports and type stuff. Like, I don't know what the hell he does in there all day because you get this sense that he's just there, just sitting. There's no He's not reading any books. This is before Facebook, so he's not looking at his Facebook feed, you know. So I always wondered about that. Like, what the hell is a cigarette smoking man just doing in Skinner's office all day? What is this thing? But you're right. You're right. I had that down in my notes. It's the first Skinner scene, and Skinner is lovely. Some a really great character. So yes, 5 stars for me. I gave this one 5 stars. Definitely one of my favorite episodes. And if anybody's coming in to the chat, we're talking X Files. Well, we won't be live shortly now, so let me rewrite that and just tell us your favorite season 1 episodes. Okay, because right now we're talking about the last 6 episodes of the season. We're running through them kind of quickly here. And later we will just give a season review and give our top picks for what we thought were the best episodes of season 1 of the X Files. Now we move ahead to another little killer child in Born Again, episode 22. And this episode was released on April 29th, 1994, 13.7 million views. So season one really picked up on the viewership towards the end. And this is written by Howard Gordon and Alex Gonza, who have written other episodes too. Directed by Gerald Friedman. The agents investigate an 8-year-old girl who is associated with the killings of two policemen that Mulder suspects murdered her past incarnation, police officer Charlie Morris. I liked the beginning of this episode, guys. I thought it had
Yeah.
a really good teaser, right?
Yes.
Uh, Is there a Tombs call out in this episode? I wrote that down as a note, but I can't figure out why. Um, but she's like a little child of the damned, okay? Deals with reincarnation, and Mulder appeals to Scully's religious side to get her to believe that this little girl is the reincarnation of this dead dude. They dealt a lot with reincarnation in season one, which I thought was interesting. None of the episodes were really stellar, including this one. I mean, this one's solid for me. I gave it 3 stars. It's nothing amazing. I definitely liked it a little bit more than Eve when it comes to little demon children in the X Files. Um, Although, I mean, she wasn't really a demon child. She was just trying to get her revenge. But
No, no, she was a good girl. She was just, like you said, trying to get her revenge.
exactly. But, she's got some freaky scenes at the same time. But I thought it was okay. Not my favorite episode, but not a bad one either. But I do like, again, that early on they dealt with these issues of reincarnation and spirituality, because I had been so long since I've watched the X Files. I didn't realize that they touched on these as much. I know that they did towards the end when what's her name? Reyes comes in, and Reyes, I think, is like she's into mystical stuff and stuff like that. She may be like a
Oh
psychic.
yeah, she's totally a new age chick.
Yeah, she's all new age. But I didn't remember that they brought all this stuff up at the start of the show. So that's cool, because that was really the age of new age, 94, 95. Celestine Prophecy came out around that time, and everybody was buying crystals and magnets. Pete, have you ever worn any magnets?
No.
Well, let me tell you a funny story about a person that wore magnets, because I used to hang out in these coffee shops when I was younger, and it was all these new age folks, these poets and stuff, these open mic poetry sessions. And there was this old poet named David Dubrow. Really liked the guy. Kind of took me under his wing and taught me some poetry. But he used to be in a wheelchair and walk with a cane. He was really screwed up. But then these two lesbian chicks came in and they started talking about magnets. So he started wearing the magnets. He bought it off them, because apparently these magnets help your joints and stuff. You got to put these pads with magnets. So I go to the poetry reading the next week, and Daniel Dubrow is there, and he's dancing, literally dancing. I was amazed. I was like, wow, these magnets must really work. Either that, or it's kind of a placebo effect. But in either case, he was super happy. So good, we do our thing. And then a couple weeks later, I go back, and he's in the wheelchair again. And then what happened? He told me that he got hit by a car. So in my mind, I could like it was really hard for me to stop laughing, because in my mind I'm thinking to myself, this guy is covered with magnets from his head down to his toes. He must, he must have attracted the car to hit him.
Yeah,
So poor
that's like
guy,
some coyote shit.
Poor Daniel Dubrow. He's probably not even alive anymore, because when I met him, he looked like he was already on his last leg, literally. But he was a real sweet guy, and he really helped me a lot with my writing and stuff. When I was a young buck, like maybe 17, 16. So much love to Daniel Dubrow, but I can't help thinking that all those magnets must have attracted that car. But yes, So Born Again. I mean, do you have anything more to say about this episode? Because I don't think it was that incredible. It was
Yeah,
good.
it was kind of forgettable. I thought the whole cop story was kind of really variety. Um, the fact that one of the killers actually wound up marrying the guy they killed, that was kind of an interesting aspect that I don't think really got explored. I just think it was for a 45-minute episode. It had like this movie level plot that really just felt very condensed, but it was okay for
Hmm.
what it was.
Yeah, just a nice little one-off. And this one again, for me, is just a nice little one-off, which is Roland. And kind of has a similar theme, more or less like somebody taking over the body of somebody else. So I don't know if that was a good idea to have back-to-back episodes that had kind of the same idea of someone being taken over, not really themselves. I'm going to let Pete talk about this one, but before that, Roland was released on May 6, 1994, 12.5 million viewers, written by Chris Rumpenthal and directed by David Nutter. The agents encounter a mentally handicapped janitor who's the only suspect in the murders of two propulsion research scientists. But the evidence of advanced theoretical work astounds Mulder and Scully as to the killer's real identity. It's like Goodwill Hunting, like X-Files style.
Yeah, yeah, Goodwill Hunting gone crazy, basically.
With some
Yeah,
gore.
so yes. So in continuing the X Files tradition of having really cool guest stars, this is a great one. Zelko Ivanek. Um, he's been in all kinds of shit. Great actor, and he totally makes this episode. This will probably be in my top 8 at the end. Because I really like this one, not just because of him, but he made the character of Roland very sympathetic. For those who don't know, Zelko Ivanek was the governor in Oz. He was also in True Blood. He had a very memorable role in Hannibal as Mason Verger's physician slash accomplice. He was in Dogville, which was an excellent movie as well. And he's also done a shit ton of TV work just like this. Law and Order, everybody's been Law and Order. But yes, he's played multiple roles in Law and Order, Homicide, The West Wing, The Americans, you name it, he's been in it. And he's great in this. So yeah, he's autistic. And as Phil said in the summary, basically the propulsion scientists are dying under mysterious circumstances. He appears to be the only subject because he's the only suspect because he's the only person in the building at the time. But the thing is, the suspect appears to be completing one of the deceased scientists' work. And we know autistic people are capable of seemingly genius activities, but it's things like counting and memorization. It's not complex physics equations. So it seems really unlikely. And as their investigation progresses, they discover that not only is he the twin brother of the first scientist on this project who died, but that the twin is actually in a state of cryogenic hibernation nearby. So the situation that is being presented to us is that the dead twin is somehow influencing his autistic brother from a state of cryogenic hibernation and taking revenge on his colleagues for stealing his work.
Yeah, I think for me, this is the part that I didn't get into that much. Like, I didn't really care about these scientists all getting revenge on each other just to get to Mach 15 or whatever they were trying to do. It,
They have some
for
gnarly
me,
deaths, though, man. That one,
Hey,
that
dude,
one dude who
no,
gets his
that
head dipped in liquid nitrogen.
yes, that is true. In my notes, I put here Goodwill Hunting with some gore, way better than the movie because I really can't stand that movie. Um, but I love the old guy flying into the turbine, which made me
Yes.
wonder, man. I don't like. Okay, what are the physics of this? You're a bit smarter than me. When this turbine is turning, wouldn't it be smarter to like go like at the edge, like be on the side of the turbine, like put your ass up against the wall? Like, is it gonna suck in from the side too? Because
I
it
know. I
seems
don't think it could, but I don't think that there's in that chamber. I don't think there's any way that they can get down there without letting go of something. I don't
no,
think they can
but
go
they
all
could
the
have
way
just
to the
gone
turbine.
there as soon as they saw that this motherfucker's nuts and he's not gonna turn the shit off. Like, just put
And I think
yourself
by
like
the
you see.
time they realize that, though, it's too late.
I guess I don't know, but they're screaming and yelling and doing all this stuff beforehand, and then they decide, hey, let me hang on to this real thin mesh wire. Like, yeah, you're really gonna hang on to that after this thing starts going Mach 10 and above. Because if it was my ass, I would be like in a little fetal position under the turbine. I mean, it would be scary as hell, but I figured I'd be safe from the sucking of it sucking me in. But whatever, because the deaths were cool. They were some crazy
Yeah,
deaths.
yeah, and I like the background characters, like the whole bit at the autistic or the special needs home, whatever it was. That was actually because you felt for Roland. Like the poor fucker doesn't know what's going on, but he knows he's doing bad things, and he doesn't like it, and he's kind of who lives there, Tracy, and she's kind of sweet on him, and she's kind of really upset about all this shit that he's going through. So it was more like the way the backstory filled it out that made this a really great episode for me.
I got you. Yeah, I just gave it 3 stars, but it's for me solid. We had at the end of the season either goes solid to really good. And now we're going to get to the season finale, the Erlenmeyer
Yep.
Flask. And a whole lot of shit happens in this episode. It's the
Yes.
first big season finale, so they're coming out with everything. It premiered on May 13th, 1994. 14 million viewers, written by Chris Carter, directed by R.W. Goodwin, and stakes are high during this thrilling conclusion as the agents get closer to the conspiracy and discover evidence of secret government experimentation with alien DNA. But the evidence and everyone who has seen it is quickly being eliminated. Dude, I dig it. I dig it. I mean, it's not the strongest episode, but there's a whole lot of stuff here that I liked. It starts out with a car chase, movie style, you know, which I thought was cool. We got the whole Deep Throat giving this Obi-Wan Kenobi nod as like, I only tell you what it's true from a what's the line? It's true from a certain point of view
It's
type.
true from a certain point of view. Yeah.
Yes, you don't really know what Deep Throat is about at this point, if he's really trying to help Mulder or if he's really lying to him. Um, there's the clone room is really great when they go into the room and there's all the clones. Mulder goes in there, but then the next day it's gone. Scully's belief in science is finally shaken because she sees an alien, little baby ET.
Yes,
And
we do actually. This is the first time we actually see an alien, I believe.
I think weren't there ones before? Just maybe no. I'm
Mm,
thinking maybe season 2. Wasn't there an abduction scene where we saw some
no, I
aliens
don't think so.
in the beginning? I forgot.
No, I don't think so.
All right, so this is our first little alien buddies. I know in the second season there are definitely some aliens. Yeah, they're
They
scary.
really teased one. They really teased one in the not the Fallen Angel episode, the EBL episode. The whole thing was
EBE.
like yeah, they were trying to find the alien that crashed because they had the alien, and Mulder gets like right up to the chamber, and then when we finally see inside the chamber, it's gone, and Deep Throat says, "Yeah, we killed it."
Yes, he's had to kill many of them. And, Scully's holding the baby ET, and she looks kind of pregnant in this picture, which is going to be a big, important life event for her in the series because they write around her pregnancy. And, well, we'll talk about that in season two. But I dig it. We get Deep Throat's death, spoilers. So a whole lot of important stuff happens. We get the cigar smoking man, one of the best, for me, one of the best iconic scenes of the X Files, of him walking down that corridor of boxes and just putting another thing inside of a box. Because Scully manages to steal this little baby alien with the help of Deep Throat, and she's going to exchange the alien for Mulder, who has gone rogue once more and gotten himself caught. Right? Is that what happens to Mulder? What happened to Mulder? How did he get caught again? I forgot.
Well, he was at this storage facility, and like there's all these dudes in chambers, and yeah, he was trespassing on government property. That's definitely something I remember. And yeah, he gets captured. He gets captured, and they have to trade the alien. They have to trade the alien for Mulder, but he gets
Yes.
shot. He gets shot making the deal.
Yes, Deep Throat gets shot making the deal. And guys, pay attention to the guy who shot him because he shows up in season two for a little bit. But yes, 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 yes. I give this like a four. It's not my favorite mythology episode. I think there's some better ones coming up, but 3.5 to four. But it's a good ending to season one, and it really consolidates what we as viewers. I remember from when I watched it first run, we were just waiting for this. We're like, okay, we dig the monster of the week stuff. It's awesome, but you're building up to this whole alien thing. Show us something, give us something. And Chris Carter delivered. He gave us a whole lot of shock and awe, a lot of surprises, and later we find out he didn't know where the hell he was going to lead the story, but while you're going for the ride, it's pretty damn great. So, this is for me the quintessential mythology episode. It's the one, EBE was pretty good. I thought that was the first solid mythology one, but this is the one where they go hardcore, and they did it pretty damn well. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I remember watching this when it first aired and thinking it was really great, but that was because of the anticipation. Having seen it before, and even though there's a lot of things I didn't remember, I basically knew this is the one where you see your first aliens, where the conspiracy is kind of revealed, and where Deep Throat gets whacked. And an important aspect of this too is at the end, the X Files are shut down.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I
by,
forgot to mention that. Yeah.
yeah. By this time, the X Files was such a hit that like we knew, fuck that. There's going to be a season two, but how they actually achieved that kind of gave you something to look forward to in season two. So there is that. Yeah, same thing. Good episode with a lot happening, but at the same time, it doesn't have much of a rewatchability factor. Like I could rewatch Ice or Beyond the Sea far easier than I could rewatch this.
I agree with you. I think the mythology episodes in general, just through this rewatch, haven't aged as well because of that. One, because we all saw where it went, which was nowhere. And two, because yeah, there's not that much anticipation, that much mystery, because we kind of know what is going to happen, whether it was good or bad. We kind of know that okay, this is the one where Scully gets abducted, and this is the one where Mulder finally meets his sister again. But is it really his sister? No, it isn't. So you kind of already have that, and it doesn't have as much suspense because they're very slow in plotting sometimes, these mythology episodes. Whereas the Monster of the Week episodes, of course, you know what's going to happen in them too, but they're tighter. You know, they're more about scaring the shit out of you. So I think they age a little bit better because it's just fun to go back and get scared again, and maybe not as fun to go back and just be hoodwinked again, with another mythology episode that goes kind of nowhere. Famous last words by Deep Throat: trust no one. And
Yes.
this is also, we got to reference the Syndicate in this episode. So that's stuff that's going to come up a little bit later. And Purity Control, which builds to what the whole alien agenda is, which we get into in season two. They break down exactly what the alien agenda is. So that's season one, guys. Before we move and give our thoughts on season one, I do want to share an article with you because I just thought it was ridiculously funny. Because I found it after watching the episode Space, which I thought was horrible. And then I was like, oh, there's got to be like a list of what the worst episodes of the X Files are. So I found this article in Vulture, the 10 most embarrassing X Files episodes. And, they start off their little preamble how, when you make a show about the unexplainable, the rule is there are no rules, and you got to experiment a lot. But then the episodes that they picked, it's like this was written by some SJW, you know, because all the episodes that they think are bad is just because it offends them in some way. The main gender bender in question, who has gone on permanent rumspringa and is seducing men and women with some kind of magical pheromone that bewitches their victim into sex and subsequent death, is played by two actors, a cisgender man and woman. It only comes to the FBI's attention because they're murdering a bunch of people. The episode all but encourages the fear and literal alienation of trans and bisexual people, to say
Oh
nothing
my
of how
God.
it implies that partaking in casual anonymous sex was comparable to rape. So yes, this is and then Shapes. Um, but considering how terribly Native Americans are treated to this day, using their religion and culture in a show about the supernatural wasn't a good look for the X Files. Never mind that the reservation in the episode belonged to the Trego tribe, which doesn't exist, nor the fact that the Manitou, which is described in this episode as a specific legendary spirit that can possess human, is simply an Algonquin concept of any spirit. So they're upset that they used, Native Americans mythology in this episode. There's a lot of racist stereotypes. And here's your episode,
Yeah.
uh, Pete Roland. This was the What's Eating Gilbert Grape meets Goodwill Hunting embarrassment episode. Your actor there from True Blood 24 plays a janitor with autism who becomes possessed by the spirit of his neurotypical twin brother. Though the depictions of mental illness on TV and in movies has grown more nuanced in recent years, there's still an ongoing stigma attached to autism spectrum disorder and similar conditions. So while this episode is cringeworthy, it's not exactly surprising that the X Files fell right in line with the rest of 1994, taking the genius with autism stereotype and stretching it so fantastically that it turns Roland into a vehicle for supernatural forces rather than an actual person with valuable talent. So there you go. You are a piece of shit, Pete, for really loving this episode, because it shows me that you have no true compassion, nor do you give value to autistic people. So we can read some more of these reviews when we get to later seasons because they go deep. But I did enjoy the comment section more than the actual article because they take this writer to
That's
town. Like, what are you talking about? These are some really good episodes. But yo, yes. Um, uh, this rampant post-dated PC horse crap is why too many people laugh at liberals and elect slime like Trump. was this more?
nice.
Was this moron even alive in the 90s? This article is what is wrong with today's society and this kind of thinking. Uh, whoever wrote this sounds like someone's in their mid 20s who never really was a fan of the X Files, especially considering there are so many criticisms of first season episodes. You're probably a huge LGBT proponent. The top 10 embarrassing vulture list, please. I got cancer from reading this. Oh, man. But anyway, yo, people, it's a show from the 90s. So, yes, there's going to be a few things that you can't get around that was the fucking 90s. But for me, The X Files is one of the most progressive fucking shows around that time. Like, if you watch The X Files with your 2021 lens of offense towards everything, yes, you're going to get offended easily. I don't know, but shit, it's. I mean, I'm watching it. One thing I'll tell you. One thing that does kind of get to me sometimes. Okay, it's a very white show. There's not a lot of prominent black characters. That's why I really like Mr. X coming in season 2. He had some blackness to the show, which is cool. They do have an episode with some like Haitian shit that I was like, yeah, I wasn't feeling it too much. It's okay. They screw up sometimes, but
That
it
Haitian episode I saw that was on that list too. Let me guess, it's racist and it portrays Caribbean people as like primitive voodoo savages.
I'm sure that's what it says. And dude, I'm not gonna say that watching it, I was like, oh great, here's another, Haitian people just do voodoo. But that's part of their culture too. So okay, they took it, they ran with it. It's the fucking X Files. Maybe it wasn't the most delicately written episode, but it, you know, it's not the end of the world. So people need to stop having fits. It's not the most embarrassingly bad episode of the X Files. The most embarrassingly bad episode is like Space, like what I was looking for. I was looking for trashy reviews of really bad episodes, like Space, or to a certain extent, even the the episode with the AI that came to life in the building. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's got some cheesy stuff in it. But that wasn't it, y'all. Get over yourselves. Enjoy the X Files. Enjoy Scully. She's hot, as Fro Hickey told us. But Pete, what
Yes.
is your general overview? Your general thoughts, season 1?
Yeah, it's a great first season. It introduces a concept, runs with it right off the bat, and then backs off with it. Like they introduce the concept, give you a taste, but then they back off with it and say, okay, we're making more to this show. Develops the characters at a pretty quick pace. They just have an instant chemistry. They have this rapport. Builds on their backgrounds a little bit, more Mulders than Scully, but the characters do get pretty good development for first season of a series. Because you look at a lot of first seasons and you look at where they start to where they wind up, and you can clearly tell that like they didn't the actors obviously made those characters over the course of repeated performances. Here, it seems characters are established as who they're going to be for the duration of the show, which is not to say that they don't develop, but the core characters are firmly established. So I like that. And it has a pretty good pace. It has some great stories, lags a bit in the middle, but that is television before HBO in the network era. You started strong, hopefully. You saved your weakest shit for the middle, and then you tried to bring it on home with some punch.
Yeah, I agree with you. They did a little bit better with that in later seasons of not having as many duds in the middle. But this season, for me, that's the only thing that takes it down a notch. Is that the duds are real duds. I mean, it's sluggish there through the middle. But I agree with what you said, 100%. It's a strong first season for a network television show, especially. And you all know that listen to the podcast that I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Go watch season one of Star Trek: The Next Generation and tell me if that's the show that everybody loves. Trust me, it isn't, because the characters just weren't there yet. Okay, the characters just needed a whole lot of development. That Captain Picard, you wanted to kick down a turbo lift, pretty much. But by season three, it took them all the way to season three, more or less, to really um, get everything going. So that for me is impressive. That from right from the pilot, you just get this relationship between Mulder and Scully. It works. They carry the show even with it at its weakest moments and just make it work. The duds take it down a notch. I'm already kind of in my head making a seasons ranking, and as much as I've seen of season two so far, I definitely rank season two above season one. But it's a real cool first season. If you've never seen the series before, we might help you here because we're going to talk about our top episodes so you can kind of dig some of the Monster of the Week stuff. But, get into the mythology too. The mythology is kind of worth it. Just, it kind of, like I keep saying, kind of goes nowhere after a certain period of time. I put here top six, but I can't do math. It's supposed to be top eight. So, what is your top eight? We'll go one by one. I mean, my number eight is Fallen Angel, which was the first pseudo kind of um, trying to dig deeper into the whole mythology, where Mulder and Scully go see some UFOs. Mulder goes into government property again. Scully has to save him again, but not the best. What was your number eight?
My number 8 was Eve, one with the creepy little clone girls, the psycho clone girls.
It's a good episode. That's a good episode. That didn't make my list. I I tended not to like the little kid, Children of the Corn episodes, but good solid episode though. My number seven, I'm going with more mythology, like EBE, which introduces our boys, the Lone Gunmen. So definitely get some points for that, and um, digs deeper into the whole conspiracy, the alien conspiracy. I think it does it a little bit better than Fallen Angel. It's got some kind of duddy parts, maybe some plot holes here and there, but it seems like this was Carter and company saying, "Okay, we know where we want to go with this. Now let's give them something a little bit stronger than Fallen Angel to kind of get us into the mythology." What you got for seven?
For 7, I got the Erlenmeyer Flask just because it does have all that kind of season finale stuff. If you've never seen the show before, yeah, definitely it is an exciting episode that has a lot of payoff. If you already know what the payoff is, then it's a little less exciting. But nevertheless, I'm putting it on my list more because it's a really important episode.
I agree with you. And surprise, surprise, I'm going with more mythology. Like I had said a few minutes ago, I think the mythology stuff didn't age as well as the Monster of the Week. So Erlenmeyer is my number six, and for pretty much the same reasons Pete said. I mean, if you know what's gonna happen, it does kind of feel anticlimactic. But if you've never seen the series before, it's an exciting episode. And I think when I did my rewatch a few years back, I was like, wow, because I had forgotten it completely. I watched this show when I was like 13. So maybe if we had done this back then, I would have put it at number 3 or 4. But given all that we know now, I ranked it down at number 6. And what's your number 6, Peter?
My number 6 is Roland, mostly for the guest performance of Zelko Ivanek and the way it kind of humanized the story with the whole backstory in the special needs home, and for the really, really gory deaths. One thing I liked about this one, it was kind of funny, is after the scientist whose head got frozen in liquid nitrogen and exploded, they did chalk outlines of all the little ice pieces on the
Yeah,
ground.
no,
I was
that's a
like,
good.
I don't know if they would really do that, but it was funny.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Good eyes. That's pretty funny. Um, Now, number 5, man, I got a theme going here. More mythology, but I think the strongest of the mythology episodes, and it's Deep Throat. I put Deep Throat. I think it's one of the more solid episodes. It doesn't go hardcore into the mythology, but it sets the table. It introduces us to the great character of Deep Throat, which we were all sad to see go at the finale, or in the finale. But it I think that's an essential viewing. If you are getting into the X-Files, you got to watch Deep Throat because it sets the mood for the mythology episodes, what they're going to be like, how they're different from the monster of the week or even the comedy episodes that we get into later on. So I give it high marks. Deep Throat, I think, is a really solid episode.
All right. My number 5 is also a mythology episode, and that is EBE, because it does have a whole lot going on. It's definitely one of the better mythology episodes. Introduces the lone gunman, has Mulder being Mulder, Deep Throat being Deep Throat, and Chris Carter being Chris Carter, by teasing that we're going to get to see aliens and then not delivering.
I know. That's such a good episode. So yeah, there's a lot going on in EB. Number 4, Tombs. Like I said, I like this episode way more than Squeeze. Although Squeeze is lovely, but I didn't even put it on my list. But Tombs, for me, is digs deeper into who Tombs the man. Let's say, and it's just creepy to have this guy out and about, and the fact that Mulder and Scully are just like on a stakeout. And like Pete said, nothing really bad's gonna happen because they got an eye on him, but just the fact that this guy is out there and not hiding somewhere and then coming up your drain pipe, he's just working. He's got a van, He's that
Yeah.
part is what freaked me out most about this episode. That the suspense is there. Eventually something's gonna happen, but when and how. And I think they paced it well enough that it made this episode really cool. So I really love Tombs.
Okay. And surprise, surprise, my number 4 is Squeeze, the
There you
first
go.
Tunes episode. Because, yes,
You there? Oh, did we lose Pete?
no, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah. This show instantly set the tone for the fact that this wasn't just going to be all about aliens. It was about the paranormal, and we could expect to see different creepy things every week. And they delivered a doozy, the first one out. Toombs was a really creepy villain. The atmosphere was really nice. Had lots of icky moments, like his nest made of bile, eating
Ugh.
livers, the elongated fingers. So yeah, this one it was a total great heebie-jeebies episode.
Oh no, it's classic. It's not on my list. I should have put it on my list, but I figured, hey, I put one of them on. I don't want to put two of them on. Uh, Actually, yeah, it's right there. I crossed it out, but I did have squeeze, but it wasn't. I wasn't able to squeeze it in. See what I did there? Anyway,
Ah,
uh, three, Beyond the Sea, scary ass fucking episode. Silence of the Lambs on fucking heroin and whatever else drugs. Just super cool. Gets us into Scully's mind a little bit. Gets us into her character in the sense of her spirituality, which does come up later. And I like that there was a callback to that in the episode Born Again, where Mulder uses that. He's like, well, you believe in more spiritual stuff. Why can't you believe in reincarnation? This is something that's talked about a lot in many faiths around the world. And so we get that side of Scully that we didn't know was there, which I think is really important for her character development. The bad guy, which Pete will know faster than I will. What's the actor's name?
Born
He's on.
Again.
No, no, no. Beyond the Sea.
Oh, Beyond the Sea. Brad Dourif.
Yes, incredible villain, and just a kind of a dark episode. I mentioned when we first reviewed it that I recommended this as a first episode for somebody to watch of the X Files, and I think that was a mistake because it's very dark. So I think you kind of have to ease into this darkness, maybe with Squeeze or something else, maybe Ice. But classic, classic, classic X Files monster of the week. What's your number three, Pita?
Oh, my number three is Deep Throats. Talk about hitting the ground running. They had a pretty good pilot. I almost put the pilot in my top eight, but then I would have had like three of the first five episodes in there. So basically, the only reason the pilot's not on here is because I wanted to pick and choose from a bit over the course of the season. But after the pilot, man, they hit the ground running with this one. And it is basically a mini movie. It's 45 minutes. Unlike some of the episodes, which feel like the reincarnation episode we talked about tonight, it felt like a movie story that had been compressed too much. This didn't feel compressed. It felt like you were getting everything. And for a first season, first real episode, they even deliver a freaking spaceship. So you can about that. This set the tone for the entire series. So yes,
I agree
love
with
this one.
you. Super, super solid episode. And what you said, it hits the ground running because the pilot feels like a pilot. Just with the
Yeah.
camera work and the lighting, you can tell it's like lower budget because most times pilots are. They don't have all the money to make it look glossy and pretty. And this episode just shines. I mean, it just looks beautiful even today. In 2021, so many years after it premiered. So definitely big ups on Deep Throat. Great episode. Number two, I have Ice, which is a little bit of the thing, the thing, and we have our agent stuck up in an outpost, and this is where the X Files showed that it isn't about just getting scares because of some monster creeping out of the dark. We can actually have real actors on here who can really carry a drama for 40 minutes and make you feel the tension and make you feel the suspense and make you feel all those feelings that elevate horror for me, when it gets to the psychological side. So Ice for me, watershed moment in the first season because of that alone. But it's a creepy story too, and it's one of those who done it, who's infected, who isn't. So really, really cool episode. Ice.
And mine is also Ice.
Your number two.
Yeah, yeah, basically the same thing. Great atmosphere, great tension, great dynamic between Scully having this really intense moment where they're not 100% sure if they can trust each other, especially when we know that that's what did in the original group of scientists that they were sent there to investigate. Um, and yeah, basically, really, really claustrophobic and good acting, not just by them, but by the guest stars as well.
Definitely. You have no clue who is really infected by the end. You really have no clue. And my number one is Darkness Falls, which I we talked about tonight, and I said that I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I had put it as number one. And I just have good feelings about this one. One, it's a bit of what's the word I'm looking for here? A nostalgia, because I do remember watching this first run and being really enamored by it. And I grew up in South Jersey near Warrenton State Forest. So I grew up in the forest, riding my bicycles, camping. So it touched me on that level because it is scary out there at night. And, but two, because it's just a well written episode. It's got a lot of the elements of ice as far as isolation. Here, they're not so much worried about being paranoid about who is the killer. They figure out pretty quickly that this is a biological agent that they have to fight, but the suspense of knowing that as soon as nighttime comes, there is nothing you can do, and the suspense of knowing that the oil is running out, so you don't have enough light. The suspense of not knowing whether the guy who said he's going to come back to rescue them is really going to come back. So it's got all those Hitchcockian elements of how to make good suspense. Give them the setup, tell them there's a bomb, tell them there's 10 minutes, and then wait. That makes for great suspense. And this episode hits it out of the park. One of my, well, not one of mine, but my favorite episode from season one, but probably one of my favorite episodes in the whole series. And Pete, I think I know what your number
Yeah,
one is. Go ahead.
yeah, yes, for sure. I just say that, like, yeah, your episode, definitely I considered putting it in my top eight. Easily could interchange it with a few others, but I
You cut out a little bit. Pete has cut out a little bit. Speaking of suspense, he's giving
little.
us a little bit of suspense for what his number one episode is. Are you back? Testing, testing. But I'm pretty sure what his number one episode is because he's mentioned it a few times during the podcast. So while we wait for Pete to get his internet back, if anybody listens to this on rerun, make sure you comment below, like and subscribe to the page. And in the comments, tell us what are your favorite episodes from season one and why. We would love to hear from you. I want to say thank you to everybody in all the Facebook groups that allow us to post. This is purely a labor of love. We're not making any money out for this, although if you want to send us, $2, we'll accept. Um, but purely a labor of love. So thank you, especially to the X Files groups that let us post because it's really awesome. Okay, and we built like this little family of X Phillies who like to talk about the X Files every Thursday. Go ahead, Peter. So you put us into
Yeah,
suspense. You were saying how Darkness Falls almost made your
yeah,
list.
exactly. Yes, but at the end, my number one is Beyond the Sea. As I said when we first reviewed it, lots of reasons. Great performance by Gillian Anderson, of course. Like the role reversal between Mulder and Scully. Like the Silence of the Lambs vibe. And Brad Dourif is pretty awesome at playing these creepy ass characters. He's just a natural at it. So yes, that is far and away my number one. And great direction too. Nice use of the song used in the title as well.
Oh yes, somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me. Yes. Great. Well, I'm glad we got kind of a mixed list here. I thought that we would have more than a few that would uh, be more or less the same. I do give it a little bit of an honorable mention to Eve because of what Pete said. The villain, well, not slash look, villain with air quotes, and that is pretty creepy. She's one of the first really creepy female villains, although not as creepy as woman we will get to when we get to season two. In a certain high school that has some satanic rituals going on.
Yeah.
But she was pretty damn good. So I'll do give a little bit of an honorable mention to that into the pilot episode. But otherwise, that's my list, man. That's my list. Okie dokie, y'all. We actually did a nice.
Yeah. Yeah. For a
Uh,
recap, we actually did pretty good time wise.
yes, so we will be back next Thursday. We will start talking season two, the first episode, Little Green Men, and etc. etc. So we hope to see you or hear from you, or however you say it on the internet next week. Thank you all who've watched. Thank you for all those who supported. Thank you all the administrators of all the groups where I post the link for letting us post because that's really cool. And that's it, y'all. Trust no one.
The
Okay,
truth is out there.
we hope. See you. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye. Ugh.
Wait up.